Hey everybody, welcome back to the K2 and Online Paddle School. We are back here on YouTube, and this week we're looking at some common mistakes that you're gonna see in the Surfski and in the Kayak. We have a very similar series that we broke into two parts for the outrigger canoe, and you can watch those videos here. And then this week we're gonna turn our heads and we're gonna address the Surfski and the common mistakes that I see and many of you probably see as well. Through the K2 and OnlinePaddleSchool.com, I do a lot of video reviews, and I have the opportunity to interact with paddlers who discuss their paddling journey and the tips that they receive and the end product in which that ends up being. Getting generalized tips where you don't understand the full concept will morph your movement into these mistakes. This is one of the dangers of watching a 45-second clip discussing highly specialized motion that you're gonna go through in a split second. Everything in Surfski is about balance. We are trying to balance two extreme ideas throughout every motion. The first common mistake is, what do we do with our top arm when we're setting up the stroke? The most common one is having the top arm position too low. In a racing context, we're looking to maximize our leverages and our body's motion. The top hand's position sets the precedence for the leverages that we can create throughout the stroke. Having a very low top arm gives us a very low power potential, and your overall speeds are going to struggle if your hands are very low through the stroke. Second mistake is now taking that idea to the opposite extreme. If my top hand is higher, I can now achieve much more leverages. Now this idea takes away the leverages of the paddle in favor of optimizing the leverages of the body. So as we go through the stroke with these super straight arms now, this is not as effective in wielding the wing blade specifically. So when we're looking to split the difference on these things, having hands that are too low and a hand that is too high, we want the middle, splitting that into a 90-degree angle with the elbow to hand, 90-degree angle from the hip to the shoulder to the elbow. This shaping here is very close to what we're looking for. Is there a margin of comfort based on your specific limb lengths? If you have a longer humerus bone or shorter forearms or shorter collarbones, this range can change slightly, but we want to be somewhere within this zone. If your elbow is here, your power potential is not as great as it could be. If your arm is overhead, your paddle leverages are not as good as they could be. When we look at paddling advice, one of the things that we want to take into account is the coach that is telling you this is trying to convey a point. And again, we can misconstrue that. Having a hand that is too low implies that a hand that is too high is now an effective thing. One of the reasons these videos end up being so long is we have to go over what is right, what is wrong, and finding that center. If you identify what is just wrong, people can misconstrue this and use this in the most ineffective way possible. So the next common mistake is inherently controversial, and I don't mean for it to be, but I have to correct this motion with paddlers that struggle with finding boat speed constantly. Next thing we're going to look at is how you approach the catch. Paddlers that line up and try to spear the blade into the water in a forward pushing motion here are always going to create a poor connection with the water. Part of this has to do with the shape of the wing blade specifically. Because of its contours, bends, and shapes, the ability for it to spear into the water effectively and grab water is very limited. When spearing an object into the water, we want it to be very flat in nature. So even looking at a canoe paddle or a whitewater paddle, these flat edge and flat faced paddles have more of an ability to pierce into the water. But with a wing blade specifically, it doesn't work so well. If you've ever tried it, when you try to do this motion, the water explodes off the paddle, your body is out of position, and the catch is very ineffective. The other aspect with the catch is we want to create some of these shapes, again, like we outlined with the top arm, and we want to hold these shapes as we begin grabbing into the water using our hips and our legs. If I spear into the water, what happens is my elbows disconnect from my whole body. And now that I have broken my posture, my blade has not made great contact in the water because of its shape, I'm in a very awkward position with my elbows in relation to my hips, and now when I begin the rest of the stroke, this is a very weak and limited position. If you try to use your hips to spear the blade into the water, you won't get the speed that you're looking for. By telling people to spear the water, you have to move at the elbows. Moving at the elbows and not moving at the hips and the legs means you have broken your shape, you have broken your posture, and now a lot of the power triangles and leverages that you are seeking in your catch are gone. So setting up a traditional stroke, right? We have this arm at 90 degrees. We're setting up using the hips to turn and set this blade into the water. I have kept my posture and my leverages with my upper body, and now I can effectively transfer my energy into the water. So looking at breaking the posture, right? When my hands move independently of what my legs and hips are doing, I am breaking this posture. If I hold these positions here and use my hips and legs to turn my upper body, this is the full connection that we're looking for. Paddlers understand that we need these hands to move to the side and towards the water in this diagonal motion, but it's easy to cheat this rotation. By going through a stroke where I'm not using my hips and legs to do this, you will see paddlers lock their knees and hips in place and push their top hand across to the side. Faking the rotation is seeing this top hand go way to the side, and you can see the paddler's bicep comes to the neck. If they went any further, they would start choking themselves with their arm. If you rotate, the space between your elbow, shoulder, and neck here never change, right? My ability to choke myself out here is very limited. And so when you see paddlers almost knock themselves with their bicep, it's a great indicator that they're faking the rotation and using their top hand to simply push to the side, not powered truly by rotation. Next faking rotation is moving the legs, but not moving the hips. I can orient myself where I'm pumping my legs, my paddle is not moving. So paddlers will go through their stroke, and you can see that my legs are moving independently of my arms. There is no cohesion and concise motion where my leg moves and the paddle moves with it. This is very confusing for many people that do not go through dynamic motion often or have a background in it. Because in our minds, my legs moving is the cue. I watched a 60-second clip on Instagram and it said if you use your legs in a Surfski, you'll go faster. I'm using my legs again. Now the problem is it doesn't translate to hip motion, rotation, or powering my hands. Using the legs is a method to move the hips, to turn into a stroke, and to use this leg extension to power the blade. And the last one that we're going to touch on is posture. The Surfski is designed with the back of the bucket sloped for you to lean back in like a bobsled for surfing purposes. Being on a wave that is about a meter high forces you to lean back so the nose doesn't purl and you catapult out of the boat. A lot of what I just described is like describing an alien planet to many paddlers who paddle on a pond or a lake, and they have flat water applications with their vessel. If the boat is not being tilted by Mother Nature and making your heart rate soar with adrenaline, it means that you should not engage with that aspect of the seat. It should not be padded. You should not be leaning back on it. It is not a lazy boy recliner. Paddlers that come from a K1 background do not lean back because the back of a K1 is purposely sharp. If you lean back on it, it will literally cut you. But in the Surfski, it has to be there because of the surfing application, and then paddlers will begin to abuse that. We have a lot of videos on posture, but the primary thing is if your hips are tilted back, your ability to produce power through the spine is limited. What that means is no matter what you do with your hips or your legs, if your back is bent like this, you are solely an arm paddler. Paddlers will sit in this without realizing it because it is very ergonomic, it is very comfortable, and it's very easy to just slip backwards and lean back in the boat. But if you're looking for any semblance of performance, you have to pull your hips under you, you have to sit up. An easy cue is trying to get your belly button to push towards the bow of the boat. Excellent, those are probably the most common mistakes that I see in general. If there are some other ones that you have seen, or if you just want to follow up to see more common mistakes, leave a comment below and I can make a second part to this, just like what we did with the outrigger canoe. Thank you all so much for checking out the video. Don't forget to check out the K2NOnlinePaddleSchool.com. We break down every aspect of the surf ski stroke with your body, your posture, your boat choice, your paddle choice, going through the phases of the stroke, putting all these pieces together, and then putting them together for different skill levels. If you're just learning, it's easy to focus on certain ideas. If you're mastering the motion and cruising your boat at 8 miles an hour, the game changes a little bit, and so does the rubric. We have off-the-water training plans as well to accompany that, to give you some structure on how to put the pieces together, how to put the drills together, how to make you a faster racer. Thank you all so much for checking it out. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you all next week for next week's paddle tip.